all sit down. And if you can whisper to people who pop in like this person just did, that we have this available at Roosevelt Center, and it's also available online. Or you can even just call in on your phone, and all the information is available on the door, how to do that. So, roll call.
Coxwell?
Yes.
Battle?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Here.
Durbin? Here. Keaton?
Here.
Ronning? Here. Whistler? Here.
All right, the first thing we have on the agenda is a motion to approve the minutes of April 12th. Does anybody have a motion for that?
I move to approve the minutes of April 13th.
Oops. Second. Any discussion? Roll call?
Battle?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Keaton?
Yes.
Ronning?
Yes.
Whistler? Yes.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 26th?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Battle?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Keaton?
Yes.
Ronning?
Yes.
Whistler? Yes.
Thank you. Jody or Jen, who would like to speak about that?
I'll move to approve warrants payable in the amount of $293,000, $414.70.
Second.
Roll call.
Battle?
Any discussion? Sorry. I just asked if anybody wants to discuss.
I just wanted to mention that half of that $128,000 of that is phase 2 of the pool.
Any comment or discussion? All right, roll call.
Battle?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Keaton?
Yes.
Ronning?
Yes.
Whistler? Yes.
Do any of our department heads have any updates or reports?
No, I want to put a question to some of the deal going around about not being enough water for the country club estates. That's not what's going on. We have a fire flow deal that's been there since the day they annexed that deal. So with all the last 2 years of building going on, we are moving forward with a project that was scheduled for 5 years down the road. We need to bring it to the top to get the volume of water going. It has nothing to do with water pressure. We can give everybody, every lot in the whole area, Country Club, Diamond Sea, and Spires filled up. We can supply the houses with water with no pressure problem. It's the fire flow, it's the volume, not the pressure. So there's a project been on the deal for several years about adding a 16-inch line. And so what's happening, we're trying to move that up to happen within the next 3 to 5 years. Because the growth that's happened over the last 2 years brought this up in the deal, but there's been a lot of deals back and forth that they don't have any water, we can't do any more building. That's not the truth. The truth is, we need to move a project that was scheduled up the line to the top of the deal, and that's what we're working on. And when it comes down to is funding it, making it happen, and we are working on it. It doesn't happen overnight, and we are making everything we can to make it happen as soon as possible. But there's plenty of water for everybody. One thing about Red Lodge, we have good and plenty of water. So it's that, if you hear anything about that, that's not the problem. We do have to get more fire flow up there, but it doesn't have to happen overnight. If we get it happening, we'll get it in the schedule, we'll get it happening. I would like to see it happen. My schedule, what I'm trying to make it happen, that the pipe goes in the ground in 2024. To solve all the deal, but that's just so that none of this rumor goes around anymore, because it's been crazy. It just came to our attention over the last couple, with all the building going up there, became a needed to rise up in the deal. So I just want to let you know there's plenty of water. Work with the project. Will happen.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm sure that we'll be talking about it more in the future. So, any more department head news? All right, we'll move on. Mayor's comments. We have an applicant for the Beartooth Resource Conservation and Development area, and that is Brent Moore. And so I'm delighted that he applied, and he will take that vacant position. So thank you, Brent. And then we have a little update on the lifeguard and pool situation from Al Hoomer. So Al?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, council members, public. I've given the council a report on the pool status on a fairly regular basis. The last one was dated May 4th. We've also published in the Carbon County News, and we've sent out on social media. It's a fluid project, and so the numbers I'm gonna give you today are as of this morning. It's a $3.1 million project. We're responsible for phase 2. We raised to date in cash and pledges $1.498 million. I need to point out, I think it's important that people know that of that $1.498 million, 37% of it came from residents outside of the city of Bear Lodge. So we have people that are contributing to this project. They don't physically live within the city. We've paid out $873,000. Some of that went to phase 1, some of that went to the endowment, and the rest went to phase 2. The revised completion date, we've moved it to late June, no later than July 4th. The reason for that is we have poured the deep end and the shallow end this week. It needs 28 days to cure before we can do any of the work. And we've had a few weather delays and things like that. But our target is now swimming at the end of June and no later than July 4th. As of this today, if we were to do the entire project at phase 2, we are about $125,000 short. However, we're thinking that we'll defer the pergola, we'll defer solar panels, and we'll probably defer landscaping until next year. So that makes us about $70,000 short. So we're almost there. We have 3 grants outstanding that we haven't heard from yet, and we still have some donors. Now, when you went through your preliminary budget, you set aside some money as a contingency. I would hope you would keep it in there because we've had surprises along the way, and I want to be prepared for those surprises. So I hope that, I think it was $200,000 we put in there. I hope you keep it in there. As the lifeguards, we've set out some advertising through the city, through the Carbon County News, and we're planning a visit into the high school next week to talk to sports teams to recruit lifeguards. We're working with Jim and Cindy on that, so we'll make sure they say that. With that, I answer any questions.
Any questions? Any questions from people who are here? Any questions online about the pool?
Yes, just a comment that it's been really fun to see the work going on at the pool and watching the kids get excited across the street.
Well, I need to compliment Langwitz and Associates, Thompson Pools and Interstate Engineering. It's been a team effort, and like I said, we're close, working with the city. So I hope you'll bear with us and help us out if we need it, but hopefully we can get it all done.
We sure appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
You and the pool committee. Thank you. You know, typically applause is discouraged. No booing, no booing. Okay, so, and then Terry, do you have an announcement about the council chat?
Yeah, so we're gonna have our second council, chat with city council. That'll happen this Thursday. There's 2 different opportunities. So this is we're offering this as a venue for people to meet face-to-face with the city council people that are available and talk about issues, suggestions. So it's going to be Thursday at Cattail Bakery from 9 to 10:30 approximately, and then at 5 to 6:30 at the Pollard Hotel by the fireplace. And so your hostesses and hosts this week will be Pete, myself, and Teresa Whistler. So we'll be there. So we hope people come by and come chat with us.
Thank you, Terry. All right, so it's time for public comment. And I'll just read my little spiel to you. For those of you who have not attended a council meeting, this is the part of the meeting where we welcome comments from anyone who would like to speak on any matter that's on the agenda or any other matter. We will have another public comment period during the public hearing for the zoning ordinance and one for the subdivision review. So if you would prefer to wait and comment on either of those items specifically, you're welcome to do so, or you can comment now. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We have to time you, and we'll gavel you when your time is up. First, we'll hear from people on the floor, and then we'll hear from people online. So do we have any people on the floor who would like to make a comment at this time? If so, please approach the podium and state your name and place of residence. Dave?
Hi, my name is Dave Westwood, live on Kane Circle. I had planned on making this public comment in the closing public comments last time before I realized we didn't have that on the agenda. But it has to do with, I would like to see the city play a more proactive role in enforcing the codes, specifically around building and trash. Last year, you may have noticed there's some construction going on. And we also live in a windy area, and a lot of construction materials, particularly those that are not properly contained, end up everywhere. Last year, me and several neighbors took several truckloads of trash from all along the west bench, from the face of the hill that is city parks, and down on the golf course. We worked with Jim and his team to dispose of it, but had multiple days picking up trash. We have businesses that are getting involved. Sylvan Peak is offering your name in a raffle for some goodies if you pick up a bag of trash and take a picture. And I think all of that is wonderful and shows pride in our community. But I think this is a situation where an ounce of prevention would be worth a pound of cure. And I would really just like to see us enforcing the codes that we have on the books about trash containment, whether that be from the planning department, whether it be from the inspectors as they go around and visit, whether it be from our officers as they drive around. We have lots of employees on the city roll, and I think this is an area where they could really improve the quality of life for our citizens in general, just by helping contain that trash.
Thank you, Dave. Any more comments? Any more comments on the floor? Yes, come on up.
Can I comment on a resolution that's farther on in the,
Yes, you may.
now? Can we do it now? Or
Yes, you may.
I wanted to make a public comment on, resolution, 3605, it's item F on yours. I'm Michelle Kroll, resident of Red Lodge, 26 Fountain Park. Shelley Link was a longtime resident of Carbon County who lived outside Red Lodge and worked downtown Red Lodge for First American Titles, then known as American Titles. She worked at my office for over 16 years, helping to close thousands of Red Lodge residents on land sale purchases and refinances. She was a beloved member of our Red Lodge real estate community. All who sat at her closing table knew her to be kind and loving and full of fun. Over the years, she became involved in each person's life which she closed a real estate transaction with. Shelley enjoyed supporting the children in her life, those of friends, co-workers, and family. But once she signed parents at the closing table, she also found more children's lives to become a part of. I can remember her going to games from t-ball to soccer, softball to volleyball, high school track, football and basketball, cheering kids on in each 4th of July rodeo, attending various school parades and championship celebrations, baking food and treats for the Red Lodge golf team, attending Christmas pageants and plays, viewing children's 4-H animals and arts, and the annual at the annual 4-H fair, and baking treats for any Red Lodge Booster Club events where she was asked to be the child or their parents. Since Shelley's death, our office, in her memory, each year for Christmas has been donating to the Youth Enrichment Fund within the Red Lodge Foundation, as it was noted by her family in her obituary. We are all keenly aware of her love of children, the outdoors, and her wishes to have a community space for children to gather. Myself and all of us at First American support the resolution 3605 in naming the recreational field space within Coal Miners Park as Shelley's Field. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Council
My name is Steph Graham. I'm with Red Lodge Youth Soccer. Sorry, we were thinking that we were speaking during F, but
You can speak.
You have your choice.
You go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
so I'll just follow what Michelle did. So it's an emotional topic whenever you do a memorial to a field. And it's certainly an emotional topic for those of us that have worked on this project. And now that we see construction starting in a couple days, hopefully. A few parents from Red Lodge Youth Soccer began working with the city to pick a spot for a proposed field nearly 13 years ago. For almost 6 years, we looked at Coal Miners Park, the airport, Van Dyke Park, and then back to coal miners. A lot of things changed since 2009, and after many hiccups, two things kept us going. Up to 200 local children each year between 4 and 19 years of age look to our club to provide a safe and dedicated place to learn game skills and sportsmanship. And secondly, the city kept returning to the planning table with us. The history of the field development is a complicated story, but remembering someone like Shelley Link isn't complicated at all. Just mention her name and you will hear how her life touched colleagues and friends before her early and sudden death in 2017. They will all tell you that Shelley made her mark on this entire community on a daily basis. As a title officer, she helped families settle roots here, and then she typically extended invites to city events, welcomed their friendship, and made them feel part of Red Lodge. They will all tell you that she was happy and oh, so funny. She especially enjoyed supporting young people who needed love and a boost of confidence. She dreamt of a winning lottery ticket so that she could create space for youth to be healthy and active in Red Lodge. Our board believes that her dream and ours is a great match. Without a winning ticket, we have rallied financial support from individuals who love to support youth. But mention the possibility of a memorial to Shelley, and you find many who say they will now feel a personal connection to this community green space. Red Lodge Youth Soccer has been a reliable partner with the city and consistent in assuming financial responsibility for constructing this public area. We asked her family to recommend a name for the soccer field and now ask the city to approve the name that they requested, Shelley's Field.
Thank you very much. Any more public comments on the floor? Any public comments online? General public comments or specific? Anyone?
I'd like to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Sherry Weimer, Red Lodge Area Chamber. Wow, what a great turnout tonight. Lots of new faces, and that's good. I was there and I left to leave room for others. Deciding on dispensaries in town is an important issue that should not be rushed into or taken lightly. I wanted to say that we have 6 blocks from the museum on 8th Street to the Coleman Gallery on 14th. 6 blocks that make up our walkable, shoppable, historic downtown. I send every visitor downtown. I tell them to park anywhere along the corridor, walk around, shop, explore, and enjoy. It's what we market to. Our downtown is quaint, Western, historic, and authentic. We just today had a lady come in that stopped by the chamber, and then she actually came back to the chamber just to tell me that our town looked like she'd stepped into a Hallmark card. It is most likely generational, but there's still a stigma around dispensaries. My parents would certainly not spend time shopping or strolling through a downtown where this type of business is located. I could care less, but there's a large population that does. I've heard that dispensaries should be compared to bars. My confusion with this argument is that bars don't have to black out their windows. Children are allowed. Selling liquor is not against federal law. A dispensary located elsewhere is certainly something to be considered, but please, not in the heart of our historic downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Any more comments online?
Can I
Yes,
address the same thing?
yes, go
Sorry,
right
I'm
ahead.
scared. Sorry, folks. Andrew Gordon, I'm from Allen, Montana, and I'm actually representing the retail marijuana dispensary industry. And I just wanted to sort of address some of those concerns, which are very, very common across the state, especially with an operator like my clients and my partners who have been in business since 2015 in the medical marijuana space, providing care to patients and things like that. All those points that were just made about fitting in with the place, absolutely, totally valid. You know, I get as tired as anybody, especially of driving down and seeing, you know, neon pot leaves or, you know, bright green crosses on every single corner, especially in my town or the various other larger cities around. But my client is based out of Dillon, and that's, again, that's a county which is retail, adult retail is not yet legalized, but we make a point to fit in wherever we go. And we want to be a part of that postcard aesthetic downtown. And so I think it's about the right partners for a community like Red Lodge that really has a vested interest in this main street and keeping it, you know, as much as possible, that postcard aesthetic, keeping the tourists here, you know, having them waltz around downtown or walk around, having our parents come down here and not have an issue walking into a shop, regardless of some of those regs. So with that, I would just indicate that, you know, we stand to increase the foot traffic, the tax base, if we're allowed downtown, as we're exploring right now. And then I just wanted to give in my quick 3 minutes, this is an example of the type of sign. This really is it. So no bright green flaring marijuana signs, no ganja this, no, you know, slang that. Everything, you know, is within state regs, and even then some, because this community needs a partner like that. So I appreciate everybody's time, councilmen and women. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any more comments on the floor or online? Last call.
Yeah, I'd like to
Okay.
make a comment. I'm Scott Mojo. I've been a resident for most of my life in Carbon County. And I actually graduated from Red Lodge High School in 1971. And I can tell you, marijuana in the recreational form has been around since the 1960s. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. But when you look at the initiative and the way it was passed, it misled a lot of people because they voted for it because they wanted it to be legal. They didn't vote for it to be inside your city limits or inside your county limits. In fact, there's nothing in the initiative that says any city or county has to allow the dispensaries inside their limits. And I took a look at the actual vote on this particular issue, and in our county, it barely passed. It was just over 50% of the vote cast on that day. But it only represented 33% of the actual residents of the county. And I know there's a bunch of people wanting to bring this up, so we vote again on this. And so I feel like if you're going to try to do this in this quick form to get it done so that you have the dispensaries in town, how are you going to feel when they outlaw it in the county if they vote that way? Even if you look at the numbers in Red Lodge, which was much higher than the county, you didn't get 50% of the residents to vote for this. You were less than 50%. And if you asked the city residents about this, you had heard testimony at the last meeting of several residents that voted for it that didn't vote for this, to have dispensaries inside city limits. And I think your vote would be much lower if you asked them if you wanted it. So I really urge you to vote no on the second reading of that. Take the marijuana issue out, pass the rest of that stuff. I was a state legislator, so I know you can do this. And then take some serious time about doing what's right for the city of Red Lodge. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any more comments? Last call for comments. Okay.
My name is Lisa Bennett. I'm from Red Lodge. I have school-aged children, and I want to make sure that you guys are aware of the fact that a lot of kids walk home from school, especially from the high school, et cetera. Coming originally from Colorado, I have experience with dispensaries and the proliferation of dispensaries throughout the area. I will say that with the easy access to dispensaries, even though not meant for underage children, they do get access through older siblings, adults, et cetera, in the community. And I saw our community in Eagle, Colorado, actually ravaged by underage marijuana recreational use. And having dispensaries just means it's easy access, just like with alcohol. If you have an older adult, whether it's a sibling, et cetera, you can get alcohol through. The younger kids are going to get marijuana at a younger age, and it definitely does impact educational outcomes. It's been proven that it does. And so I really want you to consider the fact that there are going to be other ramifications, regardless of what the sales tax revenue might be for the county, that it's accessible, and a lot of kids will view the dispensaries in town as saying it's a legitimate thing for them to use. And I just don't want to see the proliferation that I saw in Eagle County with youth using it, not just public school youth, but even the homeschool kids, because they associate with public school kids as well and also go to town. It's just a social thing that happens when it's considered normal and you see the dispensaries. So I just want you to consider the other ramifications of it.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll just remind you that there will be another comment period. If you haven't had the opportunity to comment, you can wait for that, or you can comment now. So I'll ask again, is there any more public comment on anything in particular? On the floor or online? Oh, Roosevelt Center gal?
Comment.
Okay, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, state your name and residence.
Yes, my name is Linda Daigle. I've been paying taxes in Carbon County for almost 20 years. I'm not a newbie here, but I am very familiar, and I have from good authority that the cartel, and because of the open border, is already in Montana. And when you open the door for marijuana, it's not my opinion, it's data. That's only the beginning. Hard drugs will follow. Our police department is stretched very thin right now. They have to drive prisoners to wherever they have to go to be in a jail. That when the cartel hits here and it's in Montana, I have that from good authority, and you're cracking the door open with marijuana. It's scientific data that hard drugs follow. You are going to destroy Red Lodge and its historic importance, and all the people that are talking on behalf of it, cut to the chase. It's money. It's money in your pocket. You are not considering the citizens of this county and the endangerment you're putting to us. Now, you're going to make money. You can be out of here. We are invested in this county. These are our homes. We put our money into it. And it's ridiculous that you want to bring these drugs into our county, taking into the scientific data that hard drugs are going to follow, and the cartel comes with it. And you better think long and hard before you vote for this.
Thank you, Linda. Is there anyone else at Roosevelt that would like to speak on anything? Or online or on the floor? I want to make sure we hear everybody.
I have one thing to say.
Okay.
My name is Jeff Bronick. I've been a resident of this town for 50 plus years. I graduated here in 1981. I own a business here. I've owned a business here for over 25 years. Everything I've heard concerning this issue is from people who don't live in Red Lodge. This is not the place to, we want to vote it out of Carbon County, we want to vote it out. I don't care. This is about Red Lodge and the city of Red Lodge. If you do not live within the city limits of Red Lodge, you don't have a dog in this fight.
Disagree.
Excuse me, please keep your comments geared towards the council, and we'll have no outbursts. If anyone's going to outburst, they can go outside, and we'll ensure that you do. Go ahead. Thank you.
I believe there should be parameters set as far as historic downtown Red Lodge goes. But I believe that as far as, I know you have your X amount of license, 2 licenses available that you're going to let people possibly distribute marijuana in a dispensary in Red Lodge. Respect the downtown. You also have to respect the people who are trying to make a living in this town. They're very low profile. They've been here a while. Nothing's happened. Everybody's freaking out. That's all I have to say is this is the city of Red Lodge. This is what they're deciding. It's not Luther. It's not Roberts. It's not anything else. So I would ask the council, please consider that when they're making their decisions.
Thank you. Any more comments? On the floor, online?
I have
Go
one.
ahead.
I have
Go
one.
ahead.
Okay, so my name's Gabrielle. I live in the city of Red Lodge. I live off of Broadway in the Annex Apartments, and I am speaking on behalf of myself as a citizen of Red Lodge. And
Gabrielle, can you state your last name?
is that better? I'm Gabrielle Robinson. Is that better?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm speaking as a resident of Red Lodge. I live at the Annex Apartments. I'm speaking as a citizen and not through my employment choices, but I do appreciate hearing everybody's comments and want to go back to the fact that this discussion is really about zoning regulations and where best to put it in town. So I want to just give note to, I appreciate that the council is doing such a good job in trying to get down to the nuts and bolts of, it's not about yes or no anymore right now. We're just talking about zoning regulations, in where we should and to what prolification we should have, but it's already here. There was a lot of personal comments about keeping it away from children, and I do want to note that this is a part of our pop culture, our economy as it stands statewide and nationally, and putting it into the codified economy does take it out of the hands of illegal culprits. And I also want to just quickly note that, you know, in terms of what kids do, it's not really about how they have access to, if it's through a cousin or a friend or a store, it's about how they have mentoring and how they have leadership. And I think what we really need to come down to is like freedom of choice and having the intelligent, rational choice to make the better decision. And sometimes you need to use medicine and sometimes you don't. And when it comes down to this, we've decided this is a form of medicine. And so now that we're drilling down to zoning, now we just need to figure out where it goes in town. So I wish the council the best of luck in figuring that out and realizing that there's many varied, you know, opinions and feelings around this issue, and we can take that somewhere else. But I wish you the best of luck in figuring out where to put this in town. And when it comes down to Broadway or not, again, Montana limits signage and all the things. It's a commodity. Regulate it like a commodity. I wish you the best. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Gabrielle. And sir, did you have a comment?
Scott Cope, 14 Summit Lane. I've only lived in Red Lodge for 27 years. I don't live in town. I've only worked here for 27 years. Some of the points that people have brought up are great. As I thought about things I was going to say, I want to touch on some of those. When it comes to kids, we've already seen an increase in town of kids consuming edibles, bringing edibles to school and sharing them with their friends with THC in them. That's to put in the negative side. That stuff is going to be out there. Kids are going to have access, like the previous gal said about they have access to alcohol, they're going to have access to drugs. Being that they have edibles and some of that kind of stuff is going to make it harder. We've already seen an increase, not just in marijuana-related driving problems, but we have an increase nationwide in all kinds of alcohol and drugs, fentanyl, things like that. Marijuana is not easily detectable on the roadside. It's not easily detectable on people. It's a harder thing to test for. Hopefully the test will catch up with that before we have more fatalities. We fight in Montana every year. We spend, I don't know how much money they spend on the, what's it called now, for zero fatalities on our roads, and every year they go up. So it's obviously not working.
Something that I want to encourage the council to follow is their planning committee and their recommendations. And we've had before, quite a while ago, we ended up with a building on Main Street that was Pepto-Bismol pink. And it just really didn't fit in the downtown area. So I would encourage that you guys listen to the zoning people, listen to the planning people. And if you're going to allow these things to be in town and in the downtown area, which I disagree with, we're busy enough the way it is with issues from this stuff. But make sure that it fits, like the gentleman showed us the one sign. That's the best sign I've seen yet. Most of the places I've seen in Billings and in Rockvale and the wind flags and all the other things that don't follow any of our zoning, that's not what Red Lodge is about, and I hope we don't do that to our kids. It's hard enough to get kids through high school right now. They have enough challenges. I hope you just listen to your planning board and go with what people are telling you about. I think Alan, a lot of the people worked really hard at that, and I urge you not to pass this tonight and give them some more time to have input on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any more comments? Yes.
My name is Tammy Helsper, and I live in Roberts. And I just wanted to say that even though some of us do not live in Red Lodge, we certainly do have a vested interest in this topic, whether it's that we have children that go to school in Red Lodge or businesses in Red Lodge. So I think to say that we don't have a voice here, or a council member last meeting basically said that we don't have representation here and that we don't belong here, and that's not fair to say it. So that's the first point. Otherwise, for me, I would encourage the mayor and the council members to work with the planning board and zoning to come up with a good plan, and really just to slow down. I don't understand what the rush is for. Maybe get more surveys, more input from the public on where they're at this point in time. The fact that it passed in Red Lodge by such high numbers, I think that possibly people are having buyer's remorse. And it might be worth slowing down a little bit and reevaluating and seeing if people still feel the same way. Also at the last meeting, a gentleman asked about, I think he was from the planning board, about private conversations that have been had. And has this just been your group talking, or who else have you been communicating with about this? Who is the gentleman that came in tonight? Who is his client? And what has that communication been? So I guess my question would be, what is the big rush? Why can't we just slow down and get some more input from the community?
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Sandy Conley, 307 Hagen Avenue South. I've been a member of the Planning and Zoning Board for about 10 years. There are 2 others on the Planning Board currently that also have a 10-year history on the board. Speaking strictly for myself, I was quite insulted when I read in the newspaper that several members of the council felt that the Planning Board had not guided them sufficiently. Just because the City Council didn't agree with what we had come up with doesn't mean that you were insufficiently guided. There was a reason for everything that we did. The laws changed in January of this year, and we probably should have looked at it again, but we spent a year on it. We have 2 new members, Teresa representing the City Council and Sam Weimer representing the county. So they didn't have a long history, but every member of the Planning Board agreed and voted for this zoning reg to go to you. So it wasn't a big surprise. A lot of people are complaining about it being in the downtown area, and the reason we did this 6 years ago was medical marijuana had been approved, and a new shop had gone in the Old Town Square. And then the state, in their ultimate wisdom, pulled it back out. And the police chief at that time came to us and asked us to please put it in the downtown area because it was easier to police. And that's why it was in the downtown area. So everybody who's complaining, that's why it was there, because the police department asked us to. So we did that. Speaking to the last gal is the planning board is very strict about ex parte communications. It seems to me that the city council has not been held to the same level of outside influence. Those members should recuse themselves from the vote, just as we as a planning board would be required to do so. Now, I agree with the one lady, the problem here is location. The other thing I'd like to also agree with is this is a public hearing. That means people in our county should have a vote, should have a voice. And to shut them down because they don't physically live in the county doesn't mean they don't shop here, doesn't mean their kids don't go to school here. So the idea of shutting them down just because they live in the county is wrong. It's a public hearing. Okay, location issues. Churches and schools and now daycare facilities, I understand, are on your list of places that have to be distanced from pot shops, correct? Obviously, it's because that's where children congregate. What about the parks? The reason we put those in the zoning was because that's where children congregate. Now, right now, the majority of our parks are in residential zones, so a commercial entity couldn't go there. But what if the church next to the Bank of Red Lodge decides to close down? And there's a park adjacent to it. If you don't include parks, you're going to have unintentional consequences.
All right, you're over the time, so I have to cut you off, or else I have to be fair to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill, for your comments, Sandy. Appreciate them. Any more comments from the floor? Yes.
My name is David Bachman. I've been here a year. I don't live in the city, so I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm kind of a Pollyanna person, so I kind of like, gee, if we could everyone just be unanimous, why can't we just be unanimous on everything? And so I'm kind of just thinking from the perspective, really on everything. We're so divided, the country, the politics, everything just so divided. And it just really, my idea is that as a small community, and one of the reasons I came from kind of a small community that grew, in California, and Central California, Fresno area, anyway, farming community. But it just, I think this small city, small community, it's just kind of like, hey, let's try to, I'm kind of libertarian in my thinking on one hand, but then on the other hand, to realize you can't have just lawlessness. But I just think it's important that we realize, how many people are going to be offended by any decisions that we make? And, it's even though they're not a majority, it's like, kind of, I guess, maybe we need to proceed kind of with caution. Like maybe consider like, hey, for the consideration of those folks, and think more along those lines. Like when I'm in an HOA, I think, okay, I want to cut this tree down in my yard, but I go, well, maybe my neighbor doesn't want me to. Well, I have the right to, but so what? If they don't want it down, let me try to convince them. You're just trying to convince them that's okay and get them to come along. So I wish things would work like that, Pollyanna thing. It's like, if we could just keep, talking to the folks to get more people to agree, so that, and then, move forward. Like, I'm okay either way, I guess. I'm just gonna go on with it, but, I'll still care about the folks who are doing it. But I just think that's just, I don't know, if we could just sort of change that, can we do that? Kind of like, just be more, I guess, considerate of just others, even if they're the minority of people, and that's all I'm thinking. And so it just seems like to kind of be a little bit of a divisive thing. There's some fair criticism on the other side, so on both sides. So anyway, that's it.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Anyway, thank you.
Do we have any more comments from the floor or online? And if you want to say something later, you can, but you can't repeat yourself. So it sounds like we can move on and close the public comment period. So, and as a matter of fact, the next thing up is old business, which is ordinance 957. The 2022 zoning regulations. This is the second reading and it's the public hearing. So, the public hearing for ordinance 957 for the 2022 zoning regulations, second reading is now open. This is the council's fourth meeting over the past 2 months to review the proposed changes to the zoning document. As we have done at each meeting, we welcome all of your comments regarding any matter that is affected by the zoning document. The hearing is to pass the document as a whole. However, should it be necessary, we will continue to be on the lookout for ways to improve all related matters in the future, should the occasion arise. With that, if you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium, as our former councilperson Dave Westwood has just done, and state your name and place of residence. I will invite comments online when we're done hearing from people who are physically present. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we'll start with comments from the floor. Dave.
Dave Westwood, Kane Circle. This is a policy decision, nothing else. It is this council's statement about what they want our town, including our downtown business district, to look like. I do think it's worth clarifying that I feel statements made at the last council meeting that there was no guidance provided by the planning board are inaccurate. To be fair, there was guidance provided. This council just didn't like that guidance and wishes to proceed in a different direction. I understand as well as anybody that that is certainly within this body's right to do whatever they want and deem best for the community. But to me, it seems that feedback from this community, as well as across the state, has really driven home the fact that there is a difference between the question, should folks get a record for possession of small amounts of recreational marijuana, and do you want dispensaries within your city? At a minimum, the feedback to me seems overwhelmingly clear against dispensaries in the downtown C4 business district. Not even the potential vendors seem to be in favor of rushing forward with the plan as passed in the last reading. One potential vendor stated in the last meeting, slow down, get it right. It is my understanding that the other potential vendor has since reached out and openly supported making modifications to proposed regulations to ensure that dispensaries do not end up in the downtown shopping district. While I recognize and appreciate the efforts of these business individuals to be good neighbors, I also suspect they are doing the math and recognize you may not be doing them any favors if you pass zoning and ordinances that are contrary to the public sentiment. They recognize that only 41 votes would have to flip from the previous vote to result in dispensaries being outlawed within the county as a whole. I suspect they also recognize that the council, through its current actions, are flipping votes. You've already heard from folks saying they voted for it last time, but they would change their vote if it means dispensaries downtown. I'm not suggesting you're going to come up with a solution that is going to make everybody happy, but I do think the conversation has been reframed enough that it is now a conversation about dispensaries in the downtown business district. I see two potential outcomes here. You can pump the brakes just a little bit and come forward with a solution that will better match the feedback you are getting from the community and the vendors, to be fair, either on your own or with the assistance of the planning board with direction you provide them. By the way, no sentiment or direction was provided last time to the planning board because I was also a member of that planning board. Or alternatively, you can pass the second reading as is and face the very real likelihood that this issue makes it back to the voters again in our county, as has been happening across the state, only now with public sentiment rallied against it, because they have a very clear understanding that their city council will not provide reasonable protections for the city and specifically the central business district. They understand now that without policies, a vote to eliminate criminal records means coming to a shopping district near you.
Thank you, Dave. More comments from the floor. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Can I speak again?
No, not if it's repetitive.
It's not repetitive.
Okay, then come on up.
Sandy Calamity, 307 Hagen Avenue South. The one paragraph I didn't get to was that the city council should send it back to the planning board with your recommendations. Let us have public hearings. You have better things to do than this. We have 7 members of our planning board that can go ahead and flesh this out. You can get back to your regular work. I also pulled some data from the growth policy, and the growth policy is what drives the city planning. And, the central business district is where people of Red Lodge and surrounding area, and that's why I include county, collect their mail, shop, dine, conduct business, and stage events. Its historic buildings and pedestrian scale are also foundations of its appeal to visitors and the small town characters that residents cherish. One of the things the planning board works really hard with is to make sure that every new building that goes in from our community entrance down meets a historic character. And I'm not against pot shops. I just want to make sure that our visitors and our residents understand that Red Lodge is a small western historic town. And it doesn't really kind of go with it. I'm not against them. I'm not even against them in the city limits. I just want them away from anywhere kids congregate, and that's the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Comments from the floor, any more?
Michael Keys, I live on McGillen Avenue in Red Lodge. I sat on the planning board for a couple terms a few years back, and some things changed since then. But in previous planning board meetings I've attended, in the past couple of them, it was told to me by a planning board member when I started discussing zoning of cannabis dispensaries. Her comment to me was, planning board already visited on this, planning board doesn't want it back, it's now in council's hands. I also have heard in the last two planning board meetings, different planning board members have talked about how the different things that they have to decide and do, that sometimes they know that when it goes to council, council will tweak it as needed and work with it more. This is not uncommon. This happens quite often. I'd like to just address Colorado. It comes up a lot. If we think about Colorado, Colorado is the first state to make it legal. A lot of people moved there. People of all different walks of life moved there. So yes, Colorado saw an influx of people, including people with maybe a criminal past. Now there are, I don't even know how many states where it's legal. Therefore, people aren't moving to towns or states where cannabis is legal to consume. And as far as flipping the vote, if it was voted again, I wouldn't be so sure, because in my store, personally, I've had a lot of people over the age of 50 come in. I've had ex-military come in and talk about how this plant that grows in the ground has helped them with their PTSD. It's helped them with their pain, getting off some of the pills that they did not like being on. We have one customer with Crohn's, and that person has told us that all the medication that person was on, they've been able to eliminate most of that medication. It helps people with sleep. Again, I would say over 50% of the clients in my store are over the age of 50. As far as kids getting a hold of it, I don't like that. I don't like hearing about that. But it's the same with beer and tobacco. And again, I'd like to point out, it comes down to parenting at the end, really. So if we're going to talk about the children, I'm in agreement on that. But let's talk about whose responsibility that really is. And, you know, the fact that tobacco's out there, alcohol's out there, that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Any more comments from the floor?
My name is James McGregor. I live here in Red Lodge. Put on my glasses so I can see these things. Thank you for hearing my thoughts on allowing recreational cannabis within Red Lodge city limits. First, my wife Tress and I have lived in the area for over 25 years, have operated 3 different construction industry businesses. We believe, as do many others within the community, that Red Lodge is prepared for and will benefit from the safe and legal means for adults in this community to acquire quality cannabis locally, both medicinally and recreationally. We recognize that there is concern in our small town to be transformed as large municipalities in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon have experienced. We too fear an oversaturation of dispensaries, offensive billboards, and advertising that will be attractive to minors. That's not what we want now or ever. Many of the laws originally implemented by these states clearly fell short of their mark. However, as new states came online, they refined and revised many of these laws to address these shortcomings. Montana is a great example of careful consideration for all interested parties, with extra measures being implemented to curb many of the offensive aspects that have unfortunately been tied to those in our industry who are simply looking to make that quick buck. Please understand that current advertising regulations prohibit the use of colloquial terms such as pot, weed, reefer, ganja. None of these can appear in signage or advertising or any other related materials, nor can actual product images be included on packaging. Most importantly, anything that may appeal to children is strictly prohibited, and we commend this fully support this particular aspect. One of the main concerns we hear repeatedly is the safety of the youth in our town. We say this from the bottom of our hearts. We hear you. We have friends, neighbors, family, peers who are deeply rooted in this community. This town has been good to us. We have no intention of doing harm. We simply want to help people with a trustworthy manner with a plant-based product proven to be beneficial. To the parents of Red Lodge, folks, you have done an outstanding job of raising your kids to understand right from wrong, good from evil, and to possess the proper judgment to keep them on the right path when they are not under your direct supervision. Children of all ages are exposed to many debaucherous elements as they walk around town, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job so far of ignoring and bypassing such businesses. We honestly feel that as long as you keep up the good work at home and at school, they will have a good sense to make their own judgment calls regarding our industry. Keep up the great work, parents. You guys deserve a gold star. With the majority of Red Lodge voters and the community at large behind us, won't you at least provide us the opportunity to prove that we are worthy of your trust? Recreational cannabis laws have only been in effect in Montana for less than 5 months, people. Can we give things a little more time before taking the push to shut things down? We are here today to simply ask for time, much needed time, so we can show you that this can work and that you can see how the regulations that Montana has already outlined will pan out either in a positive or negative manner. Thank you for your time. We truly look forward to serving the community and doing this so in a safe, ethical, and trustworthy manner.
Thank you. More comments from the floor. Who's got comments? It's not looking like anybody has any more comments.
I have something to say.
All right.
Hello.
Wait just a minute. We have another person here present, but I'll get to you.
Hi, I'm Jess Reeve. I'm from Red Lodge. I went kindergarten and graduated here. I live on 15 Village Street. I work at Sweetgrass after working in service industry, bartending and steakhouse and a lot of places in Red Lodge. I had to give up bartending.
Just a minute, please.
Because of how completely real it is to drink yourself to death in this town. I went to the village shop last week and I stepped over 3 piles of vomit in our beautiful downtown Red Lodge in front of Snow Creek to get some new booze. So the argument to keep Red Lodge so beautiful is lost on me a little bit because I've seen the dark, icky sides of it, the people that are drunk every day downtown. At Sweetgrass, I'm able to help people quit drinking, quit taking prescription pills, quit having terrible nights of sleep. The amount of help that I'm able to do is something I believe in so much, and it's amazing to watch it like transform our community into something a little bit better. And that's something I really want to be a part of, and I hope that you guys believe in giving us a chance to maybe change into a better place. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Any more comments on the floor?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, sir.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest, been coming up here in Red Lodge all my life, and
Please state your name and your residence.
I'm Jay, and I live in Red Lodge, Montana.
Jay, what? What's your last name?
Is actually names involved with this, or?
Well, it is. You don't have to state your name, but it helps us to understand that you're a real person.
I'm just saying, I'm Jay downtown, and I've noticed a lot of alcoholism in Red Lodge, and there's a lot more cops in town. And I've focused a lot on the Pacific Northwest, and I've been focusing a lot in Red Lodge also. And I've seen a lot of contributing attributes to drug infusion with a lot of things. Just me being as a person dealing with the community and dealing with like subject matters of being personal hand in hand. And a lot of people have been stating a lot of things about getting off of drug attributes. And that could honestly cause a great influence on cutting down the cop dealing with everything with drugs and all that, and opening up with a whole different type of thing, saying, you know, we might as well create cannabis as being legal as much other states, because as you can see, it keeps on stacking up on people feeling that they feel obligated on being so close in their encounters. And honestly, marijuana should be legal in this state alone, and it has been. And people are trying to figure out how they can actually get through with not dealing with you know, it's a hard state to say that we live in a small community, in a small little town, and not a lot of people are used to it. And we have a lot of bars in town, and we have a lot of people coming through this town as tourism, bringing in whatever they want. Okay, so if we actually open up on a tax law on tourism tax alone, and then people will come in and bring that in, I'm just saying we should allow marijuana just alone once it's actually legal. And if you guys are actually kind of bogarting this whole entire like tax thing coming down here and saying it's highly illegal to have a marijuana shop, one marijuana shop and 5 bars where everyone gets in fights, everyone gets DUIs, and everyone gets arrested on fighting, and everyone runs off on their like court schedules and all that. Like,
Sir, your time's up, but thank you very much for your comment. It's appreciated.
No, you just can't cut me off. I'm not done yet, ma'am.
Sir, we have to move on, but your comment's been noted, and we appreciate that you participated. So thank you.
Wait. So do you guys agree with all alcohol and all drugs coming into this town?
Hey, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Who's next? Go ahead.
Why say
Go ahead, Bill.
Bill Bullock, 900 Pine Avenue, Red Lodge. For those that know me, pretty matter-of-fact person, so there's some more facts. Some of the vote was touched on. Here's the reality of what it is. You can look at the Secretary of State's website. I encourage everybody to look at that. You guys have a daunting task. We had the same daunting task at the county. This kind of comes down to, you know what it is when you see it, and what we did at the county was close some of the loopholes that allow for the dispensaries to be open, because they were following in the same avenue of alcohol and Department of Revenue rules with alcohol. Zoning is probably the best way. The zoning that we put in place is interim. The interim is for waiting to see what happens with this. Our reaction to it was due to the large number of applications, Group 2 applications for commercial development for dispensaries. I think we were close to 25 at one time or another. We had concerns just overall getting properties turned back on the tax rolls with no sideboards on the development of those properties. That was our reaction. And interim zoning seemed to be the best way to do that. At the end of the day, with going back to the vote with the Secretary of State's office, 49% of the yes votes for this, and this is a good lesson in civics, I think. People got to know what they're voting for or against, and they have to. 49% of the yes votes came from Red Lodge Municipal and Red Lodge Rural. The other 2 or 3% came from the rest of the county. That's a daunting statistic, I think. I've asked you folks before, it's not fun. You've got to wrestle through this. You know, and when we're done with our year of looking at this, we're going to evaluate whether or not to put this back on for a vote, given everything that's gone on. But a vote with a hard line looking back as to what actually transpired. You know, is this a problem? Is this going to be a problem mark for our community? Because it's a big question. I sent the mayor in your email, there's the latest information from the legislature's interim committee looking at what's gone on. This was passed at the constitutional initiative level, which is both a blessing and a curse. You ask what you want, if it's approved or voted yes on, you get it. And this is the same thing that happened with the medicinal predecessor. They've got to go back in on another date and time every other 2 years to go back in and fix what they didn't have in place because it wasn't in place. Now they have to go back and fix it. It doesn't help everybody looking at it. And again, the nuclear option from the, well, I shouldn't even say nuclear option. The reality of what it is, it shouldn't show itself to be a problem. And going back to our interim zoning that we imposed, this is something that can be re-voted on when we have some information to go on. I wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments on the floor?
Can I add something to
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd? I'd just like to point out the interim clause of the county commissioners.
Yeah, excuse me, but you do have to speak to council and state your name and address.
Sorry, James McGregor, Red Lodge. I'd just like to address what he was saying. The interim regulations they have zoned have made it practically impossible for any new businesses to come into the area. Realize that they now have imposed a 1,000-foot rule from schools, from parks, from churches. That's 500 feet more than the state requires. They also imposed 1,000 feet from a residence, and that's huge. Try and get 1,000 feet away from a residence in the 212 corridor where anybody wants to do business. That's a hard bill to fill unless you're literally buying farmland and constructing a new business. What you're doing here today, by only allowing 2 dispensaries in town, you're curbing that mass explosion of what people are worried about. Urge you again, please give us a chance. You guys have put the stranglehold on our entire industry. We can't do much more than we've got here currently. If you guys don't see a big problem with what's happening currently, it's not going to get much worse. You have effectively stopped anybody else from coming in and doing new business in the county. You need to just give us a chance to prove that this can work, please.
Thank you. Any more comments on the floor?
Madam Mayor, Marcella Manuel, I live at Fox. I am not a resident of the city of Red Lodge, but I have a business in downtown Red Lodge. 5 North Broadway. The hours I keep there might suggest that I live there, but I don't. I'm here as a downtown business owner because I feel very strongly about maintaining the integrity of our historic downtown. I don't have any issues or problems with marijuana dispensaries in other parts of town. I think there can be a location to have them in town, but I do not feel that this is the appropriate place to have them. Our downtown has made a long and difficult transition to get to the tourist attractive downtown that we have now. There are dozens of downtown business owners who do not live in the city and don't feel like they have a voice at the council because they do not live in the city limits. And we have fought hard and worked hard for many, many years to make this downtown attractive, whether it's the baskets on Broadway or the flags on Main Street or any of the events that go on downtown. You need to take the interests of the downtown business owners into consideration, and I don't feel like you have. I would like you to take a poll of those businesses in that 6-block area that are in the historic district and get a feel for how they feel it will affect their business if marijuana dispensaries are allowed in downtown. I also feel like you have very qualified people on the planning board with many years of experience that have the ability to come back to the council with a recommendation of where we can find a place in the city limits for dispensaries. I just don't feel like it's appropriate in downtown, and I urge you, send it back to the planning board, let them find some locations that are appropriate, and they can make a recommendation at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments on the floor? Comments on the floor? Come on up.
Madam Mayor, Council, Dan Foreman, 219 South Hagen Ave. I concur with what Marcella said. Our downtown is precious. When I first drove through Red Lodge in 1986 from Big Sky, Montana, I came off the Beartooth Highway. I'll never forget what a wonderful town it was. I could not believe there was a town like this. It reminded me of living in Europe, which I did in the Air Force. It was wonderful. And the 30 years or so that they've turned downtown around is fantastic. It looks great. We have so many pot shops right now from Rockville all the way down 212. So I don't know what we're talking about access. We do have marijuana shops in the area. So I don't see why we're rushing to put marijuana shops right in our beautiful downtown. People can get it. It's everywhere outside of the city limits. It's just a short drive. So please reconsider giving it back to our planning board and let us figure out a good place for it off of our main street and off of our historic district. It's precious. It's a precious thing, what we have here in this town. That's why a lot of you moved here. It's so wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments on the floor?
Hello, Heather Robson Jones. I live 4 miles outside of town. Speaking as someone who managed a downtown business in Red Lodge, we all have our favorite shops that we go to, and we all have shops that we avoid. And we all send guests to the places we like. We avoid the places we don't like. There's nothing precious about the Snow Creek at 1:30 in the morning. There's just not. There are businesses I don't go in. A pot shop's just like a liquor store. Just don't go there if you don't like it. It's functionally no different than a liquor store.
Thank you. More comments? Just go ahead.
I think it's more of a question than a comment.
Excuse me, you know what?
Beth Bojo.
Okay, and
13.
you can ask council
Sure,
questions.
1315
But
Highway 78.
we can't answer them.
Okay, maybe the planning board.
No,
could.
excuse me, ma'am. This period is when you can make comments for us, but it's not a question and answer. And if you
Correct.
want to contact people who are on the planning board, you're more than welcome to do that after the meeting or tomorrow or
Correct.
something. So if you have a comment for council.
I do have
please.
a comment for council and for the planning board. In all of this, in the future growth of Red Lodge, I heard not once, not twice, but several times at the last meeting when you said that it has been approved for 2 dispensaries for now. Should randomly that ruling change and more dispensaries be allowed within our city, and then somebody comes to you and says, we need a daycare desperately, where do we put the daycare? Because the dispensaries have made it impossible to find a location for a business that we need, a mental health center for youth, other businesses that would be very important within the city of Red Lodge. I just put that to both you and the city planning committee in the future growth, the problems we may cause by allowing it within the city at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments on the floor? It's approaching the last call for comments on the floor. But we'll move over to online comments. Is there anybody online that would like to speak on this issue? You're more than welcome to speak.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jason Reimer. I live at 623 North Hagen here in Red Lodge. I would like to echo some of the comments of Red Lodge is a very beautiful downtown. It's very historic. It's very welcoming. As a private citizen, I would rather see the planning board help find discrete locations where people can I mean, I'm a law-abiding citizen and it is legal. So to allow people to purchase this legally, I understand that. I don't think that downtown Red Lodge is where these should be located. As a principal of Roosevelt Middle School, I have grave concerns about the impact that this will have on our kids in our community. Our kids are faced with unbelievable pressures in this day and age, and having these shops so close to our schools and our kids and our will just increase the access through whether it's edible marijuana and other things. I know that in other states that has had a huge impact on schools in a negative way. So I guess I would urge the council to let the planning board find more discrete locations for these businesses to be put up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else online who would like to speak? All right, if there's no further comments, I'll do a last call for comments. Go, sir.
Yes, my name's Ed Hamland. I'm Bridger, Montana. I've been in Red Lodge. We used to come here all the time when I was a kid. Great town, family town. Brought my children and my grandchildren here. And we've always loved Red Lodge because it's a family-friendly town. And putting marijuana dispensaries out in the open on Main Street, I believe, would destroy that family-friendly character of Red Lodge. So I'm just asking you to send this back to the planning board and get somewhere off the main track where we don't have children around, away from schools, parks, and churches, and not on Main Street too. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more last call for comments online or in the building. That's the last call then. We're done with public comments and the public hearing is closed. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we've had a lot of feedback regarding allowing dispensaries in the C4 downtown area. The downtown area was proposed due to comments at the first meeting from people who did not want it in the entrances. So it's currently written to reflect the requirements for alcohol in an attempt to treat both substances equally and fairly. Due to the input that we've received, if the motion passes, when it comes time to issue the licenses, council can give more weight to those applicants who desire to be located in the community entrances, and we will do your best to honor your request. That is something I anticipate that we would be talking about if this motion passes in the next meeting. We need to give some thought to how that will be done. It will be done at an open meeting, and you're more than welcome to come and participate in that discussion. And so with that, I would like a motion for ordinance 957. Oh, wait, no, yeah, that's right. Could I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 957, 2022 zoning regulations, second reading.
I'll second. All right, discussion at the table.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I'm going to read this very slowly.
okay.
I move to amend this motion by amending ordinance 957, 2022 zoning regulations to extract the section and verbiage specific to marijuana, and as part of this amendment, send that section back to the Red Lodge Planning Board for reevaluation.
Second. Discussion.
I'd like to clarify what actions would follow that as far as what this means to passing the balance of the zoning regulations forward.
Courtney?
Of how we can move forward with, so part of the concern with our current marijuana language in the 2016 regulations is that it's very restrictive, and to me, it's not ethical to have language. So with the state's 500 feet rule, the 300-foot radius, the federal language, the state told me that we do need to provide for locations within the city limits because it passed in the county, and to not allow it in the county, it needs to go to a vote. Planning board has been, discussing and trying to get ready to take it back for an amendment, for a suggested amendment already, but my concern with not having language in our zoning regulations, even if it's interim, that we're not covered with restricting business licenses. The zoning as is in the current regulations, if people found a place, there could be unlimited numbers, whereas this one we limit to. I think that you can move forward and extract, a section for planning board to take back, but again, it's all pretty new because it was just legalized in January and there's a major legislative change, and so planning board really didn't have the time to look at that change and take guidance from the city council to be able to say if we want to legalize it within the city limits. It just sort of happened because the state told us actually we do need to provide for it within the city limits.
Thank you, Courtney. Did that answer your question?
That does. That's part of why I asked, is that basically my understanding is the city would not be compliant if they didn't provide for some type of zoning for marijuana businesses, and that the planning board will be discussing the balance of those businesses. This is only about dispensaries, correct? And so if we were to amend this document at this time, we would have to go back to the hearings again and the readings again with this extraction, holding up our zoning regulations. Is that accurate?
We would need to do an amendment, an ordinance that would amend the 2022 regulations with the new marijuana. So we would have to have 2 additional public readings to amend the zoning.
Kelly, do you have any comments? No. Jen, any comments on the amendment, or on the motion, Pete's motion?
I just want to clarify that the vote is on the amendment first.
Correct.
Jody, do you have anything?
I feel the way that I always do. I don't think we should rush this. I felt all along it should go back to planning board, and I still stick by that. I think that the city has a lot of leeway in the businesses that they do allow in the city limits, and right now we're not allowing them. And on the state regulations, in the top of the heading of their MCA code that created this, it says that having a dispensary license is not a privilege. And so, that I think we do have some state protection there. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, and I wish our attorney were here tonight, but he's not. So, I will stand by the fact that I really would like it to go back to planning board and have them pick the best place to have this for the city of Red Lodge.
Thank you. Pete, do you have any further comments?
No, just as read.
Thank you. Terry, do you have any comments?
I guess my comment would be is that I think it's sort of dismissing, again, I mentioned this last time, dismissing the council that I believe the reason why most people want to take it back to the planning board is because they want a different outcome. And we have spent a lot of time, and the mayor has spent a lot of time driving around looking for something that would protect children and also give people a fair chance at running a business. And so, I personally, I don't see any difference between that and a liquor store. So I don't support, I think we should go with the vote. I mean, I don't understand, except for people hoping that, a different outcome will happen. There's nothing magical about what the planning board's going to do. So I say we should go and vote.
All right, if there's no further comment, we can vote on Pete's amendment, on his motion to amend. Is it a motion to amend?
It's the motion to amend, yeah.
Okay. So, roll call?
Battles? No. Curtelli?
Yes.
Durbin?
No.
Heaton?
No.
Ronning? Yes. Whistler?
No. All right, motion failed. Is there any further discussion at the table on
the motion to pass the ordinance.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I would like to amend, the zoning to remove the downtown historic business district C4 from zoning for the medical marijuana dispensaries, because that's the most outcome, that the feedback we've been getting from people.
Are you making a motion?
I am. I'm moving to remove C4 from the, as a permitted use and a conditional use.
Is there a second?
Could I hear that again?
I'm moving to remove the historic downtown business district C4 from the zoning for the medical marijuana, or for the marijuana dispensaries, I'm sorry. Since that's the main feedback we've been receiving from people.
Any second? All right, with no second, then we'll move on. Any more comment at the table or discussion on the original motion? All right, roll call?
Battles?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Ronnie?
No.
Whistler?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, onward. We're down to new business. The next item on the agenda is the subdivision review. So Teresa, would you like to introduce this issue? Oh, yeah, if anybody wants to leave it, you're welcome to stay. We'll be moving our way down the agenda, so, you're more than welcome to come or go, whatever you please.
Yeah. I know, I opened it when I got here, so it's already.
Same here, Judy.
In the deep
Same here, like,
All right, we'll get started with our new business with the subdivision review, and before we open, Teresa's gonna give us a little introduction to the issue.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, I would feel, that, Courtney is in a much better position to explain more thoroughly what's in front of us.
All right, Courtney, can you just give us a little heads up on just a little introduction? I know you're gonna speak more later, but just so that the people who are gonna vote, who have an opportunity to participate, have an idea of just a little bit of the background. I'm sure that they have read the agenda and the accompanying documents, so they won't be in the dark.
Like 100 pages. Sure, so this is a matter that doesn't, regularly come before city council, and that's because it is a 6-unit RV park, which under state law is considered a major subdivision, and major subdivisions need to be, approved or denied by city council. And so there is an ordinance in place from the 90s that designate the Planning Board and Zoning Commission as an authorized agent to review subdivision applications and send their recommendation to City Council, but ultimately it comes to City Council for approval with conditions or denial.
Thank you, Courtney. And so with that, the public hearing for the major subdivision application Alpine Lodge RV Park is now open. This is a public hearing for the major subdivision application that is included in the agenda packet of the 6-unit RV park. If anyone would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and place of residence. As we did earlier, I will invite comments online when we're done hearing from people who are physically present. This comment period is only for the RV park. So do we have any comments on the floor?
Yes.
Would you prefer to wait until
I can.
after, because we'll have some time for you. Thank you.
My name
name is Mike Booth, 402 North Platte, proprietor of the Roman Theater and Red Lodge Songwriter Festival. I'll give you a quick little background. I've spent most of my life, all my professional career, associated with Campgrounds of America. I left KOA in 2015 as Vice President of Franchise Services. So needless to say, I have a little knowledge about campgrounds. I became involved with Larry and Trish in 2017 with this project. It's not a park. It's 6 sites that are adjacent to their hotel. A park would include a camp store. It would include many, many other amenities that this does not have because of the size of the park, or the 6 sites. This project was designed professionally from the very get-go. The electrical work was done by Red Lodge Electric. The plumbing was done by Granite Plumbing. 2019, 2020, we hosted Jim Bushnell, Dennis Crest, and myself, showed him the water system, showed him how it all worked, and got a thumbs up from that. The way this project is designed, it's only going to accommodate 6 RVs a night. And due to the turning radiuses inside, it's only going to accommodate small RVs, Class C motorhomes, travel vans, and small trailers. With a per site price of $60 to $80, we'll attract the type of travelers that will spend additional monies in town at my theater. We'll easily generate over $2,000 a year in resort taxes plus bed fees. This project is a natural extension to their hospitality business and will be run with the same professionalism as the Alpine Lodge. And if you have any doubt, go out and see the Alpine Lodge. Go meet Larry and Trish. It's beautiful. They run a first-class operation. And I have no doubt they run a first-class extension to their hospitality business with these 6 RV sites. We need additional accommodations and different types of accommodations in Red Lodge. I recently read an article in the Carbon County News Corps proposing on your honor system camping at the rodeo grounds. Good luck with that. This project is a win-win for the city. It is win-win for tourists coming to Red Lodge, and it's a win-win for the Alpine Lodge because it will not only accommodate their guests, but it will also add value to the business. It was approved 4-2 by the planning board and should be approved by the council.
Thank you. Any more public comment? Yes.
Bill Bolak, 900 Kangaroo Avenue. Speaking in support of Larry and Trish Young, known them for coming up on a quarter of a century. I remember when they bought what is the Alpine Lodge now, and I think that, to say it lightly, it was pretty rough. But, you know, going back to what they've done and a testament to their fortitude and initiative and being part of this community, what they've done, I would say one of the better places to stay in town with a facade in front and landscaping and everything that surrounds it is, I think, top notch. I think it's an example for all of our places to emulate. I think that what they've done with an addition of camping or an RV spot is just another avenue of their business that they've done. They haven't spared any expense. They've done it right. The infrastructure, what's there, accessibility, it's a benefit for here. I think that, and just some background, going back all those years, remember when Larry brought forth the historic lighting project downtown? If it wasn't for Larry kicking that off, I don't think it would have happened. He had a lot of help. He made the finish line with a lot of extra help, but that was Larry's idea. These folks are community minded. I think that they've done everything appropriate and necessary to perpetuate this place and their business, and I think the support of the council would be an added addition to that. Please ask you to support them in their endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Lisa Bennett, also from Red Lodge, and I'm also in the lodging industry. I want to say that I came to Red Lodge. The first place I stayed was at the Alpine with Larry. I think it's because of the hospitality that we saw, the quality that we saw, that we were attracted to Red Lodge. I can tell you that based on what we see with our lodging facilities, there's always a need for what Larry
is trying to put forward here. I constantly get requests for, we're coming with other family members, someone has a small camper, do you have parking or accommodations for it? So that we can still be together and we can still socialize together in the unit that's rented, but still have a spot for the relatives that are coming in the RV. And usually those small RVs are older, retired folks that are on a fixed income. The people that have the big families and the big budgets are in the bigger RVs going somewhere else. I think this makes our county and our city more accessible to people who would like to experience the Beartooth Highway, don't have the budget to stay at hotels, but would like something close to town where they can have the amenities and be able to experience the town. So I'm in full support of it, and I hope the council is as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gina. Hi. Gina Burgos, Red Lodge, Montana. I'm a business owner in the city here. I actually am in full favor of the little RV park. I think they did a great job on it. And I think that a couple years ago, there might have been a little glitch in the matrix where a lot of talk about keeping Red Lodge historic. When we started Prerogative, we had to abide by very restrictive historic rules of lighting, signage, how the building was going to look. And it seemed somewhere around 2021, there was a drop in that. And I would love it for, and I think that why I'm saying this is I think this falls in because rumor has it, someone was like, yeah, it's fine, build it. And then it wasn't exactly that, which is why they're kind of in this predicament. There's 2 buildings on Main Street that are not currently painted, that have been painted recently, not to historic colors. So if we're going to talk on the history and preserving the historic views of Red Lodge, I would love to get back what we had a few years ago, where we are actually watching that and paying attention to that. So I don't know if that's a committee that needs to be formed or what it is, but so we don't have these kind of situations again, and we can keep the beauty of Red Lodge as it is. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more comments from the floor?
Dave Westwood, Kane Circle, yeah, what is that, what is Kane called? Apologize. So, my awareness of this conversation actually comes from my role on council and also my role on planning board. And as I'm listening to the comments talking about the things that this is done professionally, this has been done right, I think the part of that conversation that's missing is, to my understanding, and I wasn't party to those conversations, but I've heard those conversations from both sides, is that this was done as it was directed to do so. It was something that was inquired about, and we've come this far along, and the glitch in the matrix, as Gina described it, is manifesting itself after the direction has been received and acted on, and after the dollars have been spent. A part of the conversation that I haven't heard thus far, and it was part of my understanding from talking to the owners at the time, is that their primary use for setting this up was for employee housing, both employees that work at their operations and that work at the other operations in town. As I hear the conversations turning away from that, I'm guessing, and I've heard some comments, that it's basically because as we approve it, then suddenly nobody can be there for more than 2 weeks. So I have 2 thoughts and comments on it. First off is, don't let the hoops get in the way of the original intent. I do think that the planning board, and I was not part of the planning board when it came to the planning board, was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. They had something that had already been directed from conversations. They had done activities, and it's kind of like, oh, we got to go back and dot the I's and cross the T's, as it were. And I think there is a potential exposure to the city if we directed them and advised them to build the things a certain way, and then don't follow through with that commitment. So I think the council had a hard position to be in. But secondly, I hope we approve it. I think that in any use, it's good for the city. But I hope that we follow it up with some additional regulations that will allow them to use that for employee housing. That's another part of this conversation, as we've talked about zoning. We're always looking for ways to house employees. Here's people who've got 6 units that can be used for that purpose, and I need to make sure that we I think we need to make sure that we have the regulations in place that allow them to use it for that purpose.
Thank you. Any more comments from the floor?
Yeah, I got it. I'm Al Bloomer, 302 Kainu, and I'm the chairman of the planning board. The question was never the quality of the project and the work done. The question that we struggled with at the planning board was the process that got it to our table. It was a lot of verbiage about when permission was given and who gave it. So after a lot of discussion, the planning board voted 4-2 in favor because we were unsure as to the process and had the proper notifications been given, had the proper procedures been followed, was there a stop order, were they asked to stop, all that was verbal. And so we passed it 4-2 to get to you with a directive to Courtney to do further investigation about these verbiage about who gave permission, when was it given, was there a stop order, and all that. And so it was more about a process than the quality of the project. And I just want you to be clear on that, is that if you agree that the process was followed and the city did their diligence along the way, we're fine. If there's a process issue, then I think we need to address it, maybe not retroactively, but certainly going forward.
Thank you, Al. Any more comments on the floor? All right, any comments on this online? Any comments online? All right, last call for comments on the floor or online. Public hearing is closed. May I have a motion for the? May I have a motion? What? Staff report. Okay, may I have a motion for the Alpine Lodge? What?
So we should do, the staff report on behalf of the city, and then the report on behalf of the application before, a motion for the.
Motion before and then discussion.
We'll have the motion now, and we can always,
Mayor,
yes.
the applicant's representative should have spoken now before you gavelled at it. And then the planning department gives their report and their recommendations, and we can act upon their recommendations or not in a motion.
As opposed to, having them be part of our discussion at the table?
That's correct.
Okay. Is it your suggestion that we reopen the hearing?
It's my suggestion that you allow the applicant's representative to speak, the city planning board representative to speak, and then the recommendation from the city planning board, or the city planner, and then make a motion based on that information. And we can either, and the planning director's report, the staff report, may include conditions for approval, and we can either take those conditions or not. And then we can make a motion to pass it with conditions, or deny it.
If there's no objections?
I have no objections waiting on my movement till we hear from the planning director.
Well then. Would you like to speak?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Travis West. I'm with Engineering West out of Columbus, Montana. I am the engineer on this project. I was hired by the Youngs to submit the application for subdivision review, as RV parks are considered subdivisions in the state of Montana, and also submit the DEQ application. DEQ is currently reviewing the water connection for this, the stormwater drainage plan that we created. And so that's where we're at with that. It is a 6-unit, small RV park. Is limited in size, as said before. The Youngs are gonna limit it, I believe, maybe 25 feet maximum, is the length of the unit, due to the small area that it is. We reached out to MDT regarding any approach permits, any comments they may have with access off the state highway. We have a letter from them stating no approach permit is necessary. Due to this, they see no impacts from this development, and since we don't need any permitting from them as we go forward. At the last previous planning board meeting, there was some discussion, obviously, about the process, how we got here, and a few issues that, well, this RV parks aren't really listed in the zoning regulations. That's not a criteria for the, this project is located in C3 North entrance area. And so that's why you have a conditional use permit in front of you. We're asking for that because not every zoning document can list every commercial business possible. And so that's what that conditional use permit is for. That's why we've submitted that, and I'm asking you to approve that tonight. Looking at your growth policy, there was concerns at the planning board from some members that, does this really fit our zoning criteria? Does this fit the requirements of the C3 North? And to answer that, yes, I believe it does. When you look at your growth policy, especially for community entrances, one of your goals is to development should be compatible with maintaining Central Business District as the retail, service, government, and social and cultural heart of Red Lodge. This park will do that. This park will attract those tourists with these units that they can stay in town, walk downtown, spend money, shop, patronize the bars, the restaurants, enjoy the community that you have. It'll allow that availability for those tourists to do that. The north entrance under your growth policy states, development should encourage mixed uses such as mixed use of residential, office, light manufacturing, commercial development that is compatible with the Central Business District. Again, this meets that criteria. So I encourage you to please pass both motions that are approve the subdivision application and the conditional use permit. And I'm available for any questions you may have on the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney. Should I stand? Okay, to sit. You're fine. So on April 27th, the planning board reviewed a conditional use permit for a subdivision. So this is a subdivision application and preliminary plat application. So there are different guidelines in our subdivision regulations for a staff report than when I created staff report for the planning board for conditional use. So the planning board reviewed that staff report and the use of this and to see if it was in compliance with our zoning and our growth policy. They did vote 4-2 to recommend approval with, we have 12 conditions listed. They added a couple of conditions during that review, and those conditions are listed in the staff report. Although no subdivision application is completely straightforward, the background on this one is given an extra layer of complexity. I feel like I've been on a fact-finding mission for 2 weeks and really have only come up with 3 email exchanges that confirmed that they were asked to stop in July of 2020 once the city became aware of the development. They were asked to stop the project and were told that it's a subdivision and it needs to go through the proper process. To my knowledge, that's what happened. They stopped and they're here now trying to come into compliance through the process in place. I understand the conversations from the planning board about precedence and allowing something that may or may not have been allowed under different circumstances through the planning board. With that, I know that with precedence, this is just on a grander scale. We have all the time residents that don't know that we have zoning for specific uses for fence heights, and that we have to go back and say you didn't get a building permit, this isn't compliant with zoning. And so I think if anything, for me, this enforces that the importance of a code enforcement officer, and I've been looking into possible grants that potentially if we could hire a code enforcement officer to work with our police department, because that's somebody that can be in the field and hopefully help mitigate these issues in the future. Montana code annotated just for processes like this. Just to kind of cap, Title 76, Chapter 3, Part 6, the local review procedure. So the city council shall consider all relevant evidence relating to the public health, safety, and welfare, including the environmental assessment if required, which is included, to determine whether the subdivision application should be approved, conditionally approved, or denied by the governing body. When looking at public health, safety, and welfare, you can take into account the aesthetics. And so that's something that I feel like has been more subjective is, will this detract or add to our community entrance? But if that's something that you feel will detract, you can vote down. If it's something that you think will add to that feel that we outline in our growth policy, then you can vote for it. So I won't read the whole staff report to you. It's over 20 pages, but a couple of notes on the background, new information. So the Montana Code Annotated also has a section on consideration of new information for subsequent hearings. And so new information regarding a subdivision application that has never been submitted as evidence or considered by either the governing body or its agent or agency at a hearing during which the subdivision application was considered. So, what I was trying to find after the planning board hearing is I had heard that a cease and desist was issued, but I had no evidence behind that. So we did discuss it a couple of times briefly, whether or not a cease and desist may have been issued. I still don't have the record of a stop work order. Again, it's just an email correspondence. So if the city council feels that there has been new information that needs to be reconsidered by the planning board, then you can make that motion. That's why that's in there. You can make that motion for it to go back to the planning board for a subsequent hearing. But again, it'll just come back to city council again for the final vote. So I think I covered most of the things. I don't want to take up too much time. If there's any questions, you can ask any questions of me in this. When I did review this originally for the planning board, I was looking at RV parks as a similar use to manufactured homes, manufactured parks that are conditional uses in the community entrance north. So we do allow in our zoning document for the zoning administrator to make a declaration of similar use, but it needs to be formally noticed. Not sure how, or zoning regs don't really cover what that formal notice is, but that is the intention that I was working under, but I didn't make a formal notice of it, so it should not be considered a similar use. And I just want to be transparent about that. But otherwise, if you have questions, that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
I do. Go ahead.
Would you like a motion, or would you like?
I have a question for the staff report.
Okay.
Is the recommendation of the planning board, does that include the 12 conditions?
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Courtney or Travis?
Courtney, I have a question for you. So when this was in front of the planning board earlier, did they have this statement from your report stating that this project is not in compliance with the growth policy and also not in compliance with the zoning regulations?
So, no, that kind of came from a conversation through the planning board hearing. And so the growth policy, there's two statements. That I believe that it is compliant with the growth policy, and the other aspect where I don't see it as compliant is that it doesn't do a mixed use development, which our growth policy encourages lots to have mixed uses where it might be a retail below and housing above. Otherwise, that did go through the planning board and that was discussed. And then the zoning regulations of it not being compliant, that's where when I was looking at it, my recommendation to the planning board was based on me looking at manufactured parks as the similar use, and which is a conditional use, and so it being in compliance through that, but it's not listed currently as an allowed use in the community entrance north. With, I feel like there's ambiguity with that, but so
Would you consider these things as new information also, including the cease and desist and then these two things, or these, what you're describing here was already discussed?
it was already discussed at the planning board level, and the planning board vote included their conversation on whether or not this should be allowed in the community entrance, because it's not listed in they did have a lot of discussion around that.
Thank you.
I intended to ask, do we have any comments from the applicant?
We had some questions come up, obviously, with planning. I'm Larry Young, 1105 North Broadway with the Alpine Lodge. Had some questions come up, and I'd gladly address questions to come in, because I'm not really sure, other than to say I'll give you a bit of history and hope that covers, because I don't know what you want me to target, especially as far as questions. I don't want to be here all night. Thanks for this. So, first of all, everyone knows and everyone talks about the problem that Red Lodge has with employee housing. And yes, that is in fact how this project started. I've never owned a motel until we bought one 20 years ago. I learned a lot. I've never built an RV, what some people are calling an RV park. We have a nice place there with a few spaces. Everyone knows that. I don't know what to call it. It is what you want to recognize it as, I guess. We had a problem with employee housing, and so there was a lot next to us, and so we talked to the owner of that lot to see if we could rent that so we could place an RV there for our employees. We did that, and that's how this thing started, because it was an empty lot with weeds that were 2 to 3 feet high. We went over and mowed all the grass so that it was decent looking, and the lot had sat empty for I don't know how many years. The previous owner had attempted to put in some retail rental businesses, and to include professional offices and such. That fell through. He went to planning and he got everything approved, and we agreed with it, thought it'd be a good neighbor for the motel. But he quickly realized there was no return on his investment, and so he dropped the plan. It's a very small lot, and to find what some of the planning and zoning people said, you know, the exact perfect, what's the ideal business or the ideal use for that land, I could never think of anything either, other than what we ended up with, because it is very small. And to get a return on any investment there would be difficult, regardless. So, but nonetheless, because we had rented that lot from the owner, then we got the idea that we needed more of it. Instead of putting more RVs there, we talked to him about the sale of the property or purchasing the property, because in that process he had mentioned that they had talked about putting a car wash in. And that was a 24-hour car wash that would have the big fan at the end and the tunnel thing. And, you know, we envisioned a lot of things with owning motel. You know, the person coming out of a party at 2 in the morning and running through the car wash, it was a nightmare that I didn't want to deal with. So, because that was not compatible with hospitality. So we bought the lot, and then in order to find housing for our employees, and we typically have 8 to 12 employees. Red Lodge is a tough area to get employee base. So we have to reach out, and the first question always is there housing available? in honesty, I could never say, yes, there is, find one downtown, or I'll help you find one. However, we did rent, the condos or the, whatever they call them, patio homes on the golf course. So prohibitive, we had to still come up with something else. So again, we put more RVs. And that started in 2015. And we had the RVs here lined up, we mowed the grass, but it became an issue of safety and security for the employees then, because we had electrical cords running to the RVs, and we garden hoses, and we mowed through some of them, and it didn't make sense. And so I had conversation early on with one of the water folks with the utilities, and said, you know, here's what I would like to do. And so that was an idea that came out. But also, where this really started, and I think makes a difference for us, was we put up a fence around that property as we had, and we simply extended the fencing that went back of our property. And there's always a reason for everything. We won't get into it. We put the new fence up, and when we put that up, the planning board, or the individual in the office here at that time, came out and stopped and said, hi, what are you guys doing? What are your plans and stuff? And I said, we permitted a fence, we did all of that. And so we walked the property, and I talked to him about the best use for us, not the best use for what someone else had an idea. We've heard of everything, but the best use of that property for us. And that still included the employee housing. The planner then walked the property and stuff like that, and I asked him at that time, now, bear in mind, this was in around 2016, 2017 era, and I can get that exact date. But as we walked around, I said, what about a place to park our RVs? And he said, well, we'll have to look into that. And so after several days and stuff, he came back and he handed me the planning, or the zoning and the codes and everything, of which he highlighted quite a bit of information. And I still have that information. The main thing with that is we came to the conclusion, he was with us, and we came to the conclusion it was good. And he said, everything is good, go for it. And but the other thing I want to point out is that next to his office was the other individual that was in planning, and everyone knew about this. And we all were on board with the same project. There's been one project only. There was never another discussion about anything else. There was discussion about RVs always. And I did call the water department, and we had a very good informative thing. And at the time, my recollection, because there's nothing on paper in my office as far as that, but here's what we want to do. We want to make it safe. We want to make it work for basically employees. But at that time, then we were talking about the water system. And so moving on with that, we had no problem. And I was, you know, I can always talk about looking back. And something was mentioned here about having somebody that looks over for the codes and stuff like that. I think is awesome. Looking back, that'd be great. But nonetheless, we started the project to get the water to that lot. And got into that project, and at that time I had plans for 3 RVs, and then we had another thing that hit the country. I couldn't start the project the year that I talked to the planner because it was a financial issue. We had just purchased the property, and I needed another year, so it wasn't until the following year when he gave us the okay and said, yes, everything's fine, go ahead. And that's when we asked for help. We had great consultant, and And we hired the best people and we set the, plan into works. And, moving on, it went slow because it's always, the funding part of it. And while we were doing that, I had further discussion, and it was said as an idea, why don't you do another 2 more? Because the state talks about, at that time, the state was talking about anything less than 7 spots. So we stopped at 6 and said, okay, we'll do 6, and then we don't have to do all of this stuff. Did I get the right information? I don't know. I got information, I went ahead, I did what I felt was the okay to go ahead and do the project. My mistake, I own it. That's it. But to clarify, as we went along, we built the project, we were doing the project, and we had need of 2 hours of work to complete it. There's still a dirt pile out there. And we did not get a, whatever's been said, cease and desist. We had written information and it said stop. When I got the letter, or when my wife got my letter, I called immediately and said, my exact words, what do I need to do? And that's when I talked to Caniglia. He said, you need to bring the project into compliance. I said, help me out, tell me exactly what you want. And at that point, we hired professional help, again, the best in the area. And everything has been done exactly what James asked me at the time he told me. And since that day, didn't matter what he wanted, it just mattered that I give him what he said. And that's what I really tried to do. And I really would appreciate your help. I understand the position, but I would just appreciate your consideration, please. And a little bit on the side, I have worked it out as a business plan, and it could be nice for the town of Red Lodge. We are tax collectors for the town. It's not a big deal. It's 6 uses. I have to use some of it for my employees. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I was never aware of some of the other issues, but I need some help. I hope we're contributing enough to the town that there can be some understanding there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
May we entertain a motion?
Yes. In light of the new information provided following the planning board hearing of April 27th and questions about process now, I move to schedule a subsequent hearing for the planning board so they may review before bringing this back to the city council.
I second. Discussion? Terry, would you like to, do you have anything you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've talked to a lot of, people with different ideas of what went on, and I just don't feel like I have enough information for me to make that decision right now. And I feel the people that are closer to it is the planning committee. And so if they agree with that and think that's a good move, I think that they should relook at all of the information, digest it, and then come back to us with a recommendation.
Thank you. Pete?
I don't agree with this motion. I think I have known the applicants for years. Everything they've done has been first rate, above board, and in good faith. And I think if anything has fallen through the cracks here, it's been the cracks in the city and not the applicant. And I think they need the benefit of the doubt because they have an investment in this property.
Sure.
I agree that if there had been new information that was brought to light, it should go back to the planning board. However, what I'm hearing is that there really was not a lot of new information. And I think that the planning board probably, I don't want to say how they're gonna vote, but with what was brought forward, I really don't think it would change the outcome. I do agree with Pete. I think that, the applicants have done everything that they possibly could, knowing what they knew and what they were told. And, it is a first-rate operation. They've used it for employee housing, and that's a whole nother issue, and I think we need to address that down the road as well. But, I would like to have this move forward tonight.
Thank you. Jen?
Can I actually ask Al, if he's here, a question? Sure. So, Al, do you feel like, there's enough new information that it warrants going back to the planning board?
Welcome to our world.
Well, I know, I was just looking to see all the participants.
I know, there we go. Okay, go ahead.
This work was done by quality individuals, was quality work, that's not the issue. The issue is that we were asked to approve something that had been verbally approved by someone in the city. And that was the question. So what you come down to is, in the way that the vote ended up the way it did, is we, as a board, fell on the side of the applicant saying, we believe what they said, and we asked Courtney to check into it, and she has. So, I have planning board members here. It's dangerous to figure out how the board's gonna vote. But I think the issue is the city has created a literal problem in our process. We need to clean that up, and they should not be penalized for that.
So if I understand you correctly, you don't necessarily want it back. It's not the case that Courtney came up with a bunch of new information that warrants
If it comes
revisiting.
back, like I said, it's a 6-member planning board. I'm the chairman, and I think I can read my board pretty well. But the discussion with the new data and the lack of anything in writing, and the fact that they said they had approval from James and they got approval from whoever else, you can't believe them until we see something different. And we haven't seen something different.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Madam Mayor, I got a little bit to this deal, because at the point I was contacted about the hook up the water and stuff, so I met with them down there, so they did, so I and the part of it was about the DEQ approval, the subdivision, the DEQ approval, so I contacted DEQ about the water hookup and how it had to be, and so what they said was it had to have a backflow preventer, that they would hook to the deal, but if the backflow preventer had to keep it from anything happening, so I went down there, the plumber took me in, they showed me the setup, it's after the meter, the backflow preventers are there. So I said, well, the DEQ's approval of this, I have no problem, it meets what they told me it had to have. And so at that point, I told them, according to what they told me and what you have here, that water system is fine, it meets the DEQ. And then we're waiting, I mean, it's still in the deal, but it meets what their standards said it had to be. And so at that point, it was to the point of, I thought, well, that's fine. And while the subdivision deal happened, I wasn't a part of that, but I did make sure that that met the standards of our water quality and the protection of the water system. So I just want to say, at that point, I told them I see no problem with it, and the DEQ's approval would make it even better. So that's where we're at on that. I don't, like I said, I don't know that the planning board would make any change there either, nor would I. It meets the standard of the DEQ's direction of how it had to be.
Thank you. Do you have any further comments?
I guess I would just say that, I think in light of these comments, I feel like it's not the case that there's substantially new information that warrants bringing this back to the planning board. And that wasn't what I thought was the case, having reviewed the packet ahead of time. So I've changed my position on that.
Thank you. Kelly?
I guess I would just echo what Jen just said, because I thought, after hearing all of this, I don't feel like there is a lot of new information that wasn't discovered by the planning board during their deliberation previously, so I've also changed my mind.
Thank you, Teresa.
I am looking for some clarity at this point. I'm looking at the statement that I have highlighted. It says in new information that permission that the applicant suggested was approved by city staff was later said to have been a false statement by city staff. So I guess we're never gonna get an answer on that. But the other thing that is new information to me, and it's not in the report, is that this is for employee housing. This was not brought up at the planning board in our last session. We discussed having a period of 14 days max for any occupant of these RVs. And now that story has changed. That concerns me. Can we get some clarification on that?
Keep our protocol here.
Right. I mean, we're gonna vote, but I mean, this is
We're
different.
discussing an amended,
Right, so I'll stand by my movement
thank you.
to send this back to planning board for subsequent hearing based on that new information.
Do we need any further discussion on Teresa's motion? Yes.
Okay, I seconded it, but now I'm hearing different information from the planning board that I heard before as far as they're wanting to look at it again. So if I'm hearing that they don't want to look at it again, then I don't know. I just don't feel like I just think that the amount of information we have now.
Rescind your second.
Yeah.
It's up to you though.
All right, well, it sounds like we can either amend the motion or we can have a roll call vote. And
I'll amend my movement. I move to amend, rescind. It sounds like it's just a cluster, you know what? It's just.
Yeah.
So you're rescinding your motion.
Yeah, so now there's no. Yeah.
All right, do we have a
We
fresh
need
motion?
we need
After reviewing and considering the application materials, project memorandum, public comments, and all the information presented, I hereby move to approval for a 6-unit RV park located at 1105 North Broadway within the amended Red Lodge North annexation, South 22, Section 22, Township 7, South, Range 20 East, Meyer Subdivision, Lot 1, Certificate of Survey 1972 AM, left highway right-of-way, subject to the following conditions listed. Please don't make me read them.
I second it.
All right, any further discussion from the table? Yes.
I want to be clear, are we approving an RV park or are we approving the workforce housing?
At the RV park, as written in this.
As was recommended by planning.
Well, because they mentioned workforce housing, so if it's an RV park, it's 14 days.
That's right. That's what we're approving.
So is that what the motion is for an RV park?
Correct. Yes.
Because that's what the planning board looked at, as an RV park.
Correct. I think we need, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think council needs to review the other at a different time, the 14 day for employee housing type situation.
We are not reviewing any other rules right now.
Right now, right, exactly.
I just want to add, on top of the 14-day ordinance, the zoning regulation definition of the recreational vehicle park is for short-term accommodation not to exceed 30 days in any calendar year. So that is defined in the zoning, and that was brought up at the planning board hearing review. We did define that clearly.
Thank you. Do we need any more discussion on this matter? Roll call?
Battle?
Yes.
Curtelli?
Yes.
Urban?
Yes.
Beaton? Yes. Ronnie?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. With permission of council, I know that there's people here who have been waiting for some of these next actions. I don't think that we need to be here long, but I would like consent of council to proceed.
Yeah, let's get it over with.
Yeah. Thank you. Next on the agenda is, it's resolution 3601 setting the business registration fees. And my apologies to the people who came for that, who have been so patient to sit here. And I'll just mention, it's been suggested that members of council may for whatever reason, have a conflict of interest with this issue. If that is the case for any council members, they're welcome to refrain from participating and request clarification on this issue from the city attorney for future reference. This is only up for discussion. So, with that, if we may have a motion?
We don't need a motion.
Oh,
It's
just
just
discussion.
discussion.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
We're not action.
Okay, discuss.
Don't.
Okay, Teresa, you.
I'm Sherry.
It's getting late. Pete, do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to, we'll do a loop here, and then we'll dwell on whatever comes up. So, and we'll get some input from some of you after the first round of this meeting. So, Pete, do you have anything you'd like to ask or comment on with regards to this discussion for setting business registration fees? I'll come back to you. It looks like, would you like to comment, or would you like me to come back?
I think as general discussion, they need to be looked at. I think one of our council members has done a great deal of homework. I think there needs to be some changes in them. I think, and I'll defer to this individual, but I think there's some other models that have really done well doing it differently than we do. I think there needs to be fairness to those with the less revenue than those with the greater revenue. So I definitely think it needs to be discussed, and I would recommend, as a result of those discussions, making some changes.
Thank you. Jody?
I do agree with Pete. You know, this started as just a general conversation, going back over our ordinance, Ordinance 907. It was found that we probably have not increased our business license fee, registration fee for probably over 30 years. And the cost of the admin part of that has significantly gone up in 30 years. And just as a point of reference, in our budget last year, business registration license fees brought in $27,000. And so that's partly where this came about, just to go through and update these. I do agree that I think that we can add a few more categories, and I would also like to see an exemption made for people under the age of 18, so we're not going after the lemonade stand or the water sales type thing at the 4th of July, or the, you know, high school kid going out mowing lawns.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also like to see, you know, maybe a lot of places do a at-home business type fee that is a lower rate, because we do have a lot of people that sell products, you know, Mary Kay, things like that, where you maybe make $300 a year, but they are good enough to be compliant and register. You know, so do we really want to take a fifth of their income or whatever with $100? So that's, and I just want everyone to know, I really feel that this is up for discussion. I think everyone on council is willing to take suggestions, but it does need to be looked at, and I think we do need to look at adjusting.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes, I would say I think that this is worth discussing. I appreciate that it's coming to the community in this way, with a brief discussion of like, here's some reasoning why it's worth looking at now, and in particular the idea of creating categories of businesses with different rates based on the amount of administrative fees that are associated with that business. And so as someone who's been working on the budget quite a bit lately, that's kind of my lens, and also looking at just in the last 6 or 8 months, the drastic increase in cost to the city to manage business licenses for some of these categories. I think that is impetus for looking at this now. And, you know, I'll echo what Jody said. I'd be happy to hear comments from folks who have businesses here about what you'd like to see, and have that lead the discussion in terms of what ends up in front of us for a vote. So this is just the beginning of the conversation, but I think it's worth having.
Thank you. Kelly, do you?
I don't really have anything to add that's already been said. I mean, I'm looking forward to the conversation and to hearing from people.
Thank you. I have lots to say. Terry. So, I think it's wonderful that there, you know, there seems to be a really good reason for updating the business fee schedule. But I think if the approach to this is a little bit backwards and possibly premature, I would like to see an amendment possibly to 907 or some changes that provide the reasons, the whereases, right? To update the 907 ordinance itself would give good reason and meaning behind the adjustments to the fee schedule. Like you said, Jody, you had some really good ideas there, but let's explore those and see what actually should be updated in our ordinance first with the fee schedule following.
Thank you. All right, and I would, is there comments from, help me, I'm sorry.
I'll be the wrong name and just skipped over.
Just saying. Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna, I'd like to kind of echo what Teresa said, and I think, you know, it was great that Jody took this on and started it, but I do think that as we're looking through this, we should be able to justify how we came up with each of these numbers. And, you know, as you look at other cities in Montana, they do it a little different. Maybe they're, you know, I guess that was in 2014, the last time that was updated when I looked. And there may be some things that other cities do. We can, again, share best known methods. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think that that would be a very good process to make it more thorough as opposed to just having new numbers up for fees.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Yep. And I would like to say that we did look at, it wasn't just me that came up with this. It was, we did look at other cities and towns and how they handle different fees.
Well, it'd be really good to hear all of that background.
Yeah,
so that we can understand how you came up with it.
And we can
do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Okay, so comments from the public. Does anybody have anything they would like to? Jen?
Jen Kapp, 8 North Platte, owner, operator, AAA Red Lodge Rentals. I have 4 other business partners. Jade, one of the hardest working women I know, was slated to speak tonight on behalf of our company, which her time with her babysitter ran. So, without a doubt, AAA Red Lodge Rentals feels that the business registration fees should be raised across the board for every business type. We have no argument with that at all. We think it's past time. Our concerns and questions have to do with the addition of the per location on hotel, motel, and short-term rentals line detail in Resolution 3601. I will cut to the chase so I don't run out of my 3 minutes. Basically, is there a discussion and room to consider the professional companies in Red Lodge that manage an inventory and create a fee structure specific to those businesses? I'm not saying that our fees don't go up, but to impose a $250 fee per house in our inventory is significant. It's very significant. And we don't necessarily feel that that can just be easily passed on to the homeowner, because in the past, we've always absorbed those fees. It's part of our contract. So, for instance, if we were managing, say, 1 to 10 homes, this fee. If we're managing 10 to 20 homes, this fee might be more than, $250. We're not suggesting we don't carry our share, but we are suggesting for another category to be created, and that is for basically professional short-term rental management companies. I think collectively, and I know I have other representatives here tonight in this industry, but there's roughly like 59 homes that are professionally managed in Red Lodge. That's actually a small amount when you take a look at all of them that we have right now. We're actually sitting in the minority. So I understand that there is a need to generate revenue in order to manage short-term rentals and to hold short-term rentals in compliance with current ordinance. However, I don't feel that the professional companies that have been carrying the burden on education and upholding all the ordinances that are currently in place playing by the rules shouldn't be faced with $250 per home fee in order to carry the cost of initiating a program that brings individually managed short-term rentals up to speed. I don't think that's fair. So, I would ask, also to say that I know short-term rentals, we know short-term rentals are a hot topic, and they will continue to be a hot topic. And we have no problem being part of the discussion and hopefully the solution. We are basically asking that another category be created. As far as a single home that is being independently managed by an owner or an agent, if I were that person, yes, raise my fee to $250. But if a hotel that has 36 rooms and generates significant revenue and resort tax is going to be licensed at $250 annually, I think that consideration should be given to the professional management companies alone. Thanks, Vicki. Thank you.
Any more comments from the floor?
Hi, Tony Cuban, Red Lodge Reservations. I reside at 803 North Hauser. I'm just going to echo the comments that my colleague at AAA stated. I can't say anything better myself. So full support of what she put forward, and would like to put my name behind that.
Thank you. You have a remarkable brevity. And this is just the beginning of the conversation, so do we have any more comments? Are there any comments online about this issue? Do we have any more comments on the floor?
Can I just make one
Yes.
comment regarding what Piney
Yes.
had brought up and stuff? There has been discussions on that, especially with our new resort tax software and stuff. And Dennison, we talked with the city attorney, and Dennison is supposed to supply us with an opinion on that. He's just been totally swamped. So when we get that opinion, we will pass that on to council members.
Thank you.
Just so you know.
And so I guess my final question on this topic is, where would you like to go from here? Would you like to have another discussion? Would you like to submit proposals to discuss? Teresa?
I just really think it's important to address, possible amendments to ordinance 907 in advance of a new schedule, a new fee schedule. It's what we did for water, wastewater. I mean, it makes sense. It's actually necessary.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a volunteer to draft that?
Am I too late to comment?
No, we'll let you comment. This is just a discussion, so we're
The
just.
discussion on the fee structure on the.
Yeah, so come on up and, that's formal during discussion.
I didn't want to do it online.
You're right, Diane.
I know. So I sent you all the actual ordinance. That this particular resolution. Oh, sorry, Diane Gibbons, 217 North Platte, just on the street. I sent you all the ordinance that this resolution actually addresses. And one of the things that I want you to think about on this particular ordinance is this is just a business registration, not a revenue generator for the city of Red Lodge to beef up the general fund. This is a registration, as you will read in the definition, to assist the city clerk so that they will know all of the various businesses in the city of Red Lodge. So that when Jen comes in with her list of all of her overnight rentals, they can put them into the book and know those are the ones that are going to come in and they're going to give you resort tax. So make sure they get into the resort tax column. And when I come in with my Napa ones, they know that I have the auto parts store. And they're right on there. I don't carry anything at this point that collects resort tax. Sorry. But that's how auto parts are. So she knows that they can put that in that column. And when Gina Berghoff comes in with her restaurant alcohol one, they know that they're going to get resort tax, and then they're also going to go into the alcohol column, and so they're going to be checking that too.
This isn't a revenue generator. This is just a registration. It's kind of like when we all go in and get our driver's license, and we all pay the same fee. Everybody pays the same fee, whether you're 16, 18, 60. Everybody gets a driver's license, the basic one. And then if you get something better, you pay a little more. That's not what this is. That's why it's been $50 as the base fee. And then if you have alcohol, you pay, I don't know, because I don't have alcohol. So 150 or 200 or whatever. You know, in 2014, they rewrote the ordinance and they added in temporary vendors and they added in extra money. In 2009, they rewrote the ordinance. And, you know, at those times, they did check and see, I don't mind if you add in more money for business registration, but that's all it is. When you up our rates 400% and beef up the general fund by $100,000, with those of us who are paying our funds, that's just those of us who are paying. That's $100,000 more from legitimate people who are paying our registration fee. So you guys do what you want to do because you're going to. And those of us who continue to pay our fees like we're going to, we're going to cut back somewhere else. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm going to start holding back a lot of money because I know what's coming down the pike. I've been sitting up there. I know how hard it is. Budget time is hard because you know there's no money. It's not easy. You think, oh, we got resort tax. We're going to have a whole bunch of money. No, it's not there. It's all been spent. So just remember that. This is not a fee generator. This does not go because we need more money for the police or we need more money for streets or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, we were discussing that maybe, and maybe I was corrected, but,
You were looking for a volunteer.
yes.
Look to your left.
You know, we can start with the old ordinance, and then we can, if you would come prepared to the next time we schedule this, and we can review if that ordinance was currently
Do you
in
want this
existence.
as part of the admin department, since they'll be working with Lonnie and Danae? Is that what?
It's fine with me, if you have, you know, however you want to structure it, if you would like to do that, you're more than welcome to. Yes.
That's me then.
Oh, you know, I don't want to overburden any.
No, but I would volunteer to help as well, so we both can do it.
Me.
Yeah.
And then we'll, when we go to move again on this issue, we'll, announce it, and so, because we do want everybody's input on it. We want good policy moving forward, so is that covered enough for that discussion? Is everybody content? Okay, then the next thing, is there anybody here for the Shelley link?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to get to that next. You guys have been super patient, and that's a neat thing. I think the rest of us council can just sit here and handle everything else, but, may I have,
I move to
motion?
approve, resolution 3605 to authorize the naming of soccer field within Coal Miners Park.
I'll second it. Well, I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
Nope. I'm
It's
sorry.
It's awesome.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Would anybody like to comment?
It's a great community show of kindness, so I think it's wonderful.
Wonderful.
This is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything you've done to bring it this far.
This is the best thing of the night, right there.
Yeah, thanks for making me cry.
Yeah. Yeah, so cool.
We're partners anyway.
Chris,
Keith, McGillen Street. I just wholeheartedly support the naming of Shelley Field. She was just a wonderful person. I can't think of a better name for a soccer field.
thank you. Are there any more comments from?
Yeah.
Any more comments at the table? So, roll call.
Battles?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Keaton?
Yes.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Whistler?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's almost like people didn't want to talk about waste wastewater.
All right, and people, hang in there, because we're almost done. And you guys, I love that you're staying, but, I mean.
You don't have to go.
All right, resolution 3602, adopting the preliminary engineering report. I think it's been in the packet, it's somewhat self-explanatory. Terry, go ahead.
Okay, so I was just gonna say that this resolution is to adopt the current version of the preliminary engineering report that was submitted by, Great West Engineering. I didn't know if Jim had anything to add to that.
No, they did, I think they did a great job on it, and this is a document that we really need in our file to move forward when we go to do wastewater projects. We have that report, that's part of it. When you go for a grant, they request that you show that you have that. It needed updated, we're updated, and I think it's kind of another no-brainer. We need to pass that and move forward so we can start moving forward, because our infrastructure, especially in the wastewater and the distribution deal, is in need of dire work. And this is the first move of getting moving on that. And with the last couple of years of what's happening, the growth in this town, we're suffering growing pains in the infrastructure of the city. As we said, that water project deal, all these things coming up, but as this city's growing and the expectation that is right now, we're really suffering growing pains, and we need to move forward with these things. And this is one of the first ones. And it's just a document that we need in our library to move forward with grants and getting projects.
Thank you.
So should I move?
Maybe we have a motion?
Okay, so I move to approve resolution 3602, a resolution of the city of Red Lodge to adopt a detailed preliminary engineering report prepared by Great West Engineering.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Battles?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Sturman?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Whistler?
Yes. Thank you. Terry, would you like to introduce resolution 30, wait,
Yeah. Oh, question.
yes. Would you like to introduce resolution 3603?
Sure. So this resolution commits Red Lodge to provide matching funds in support of the Montana Department of Commerce's Montana Coal Endowment Program to support improvements to our wastewater system. And so the way it works is there's various grant amounts ranging from $500K to $750K that are available depending on the current rates versus target rates. And the targeted rates are calculated as a percentage of the median household income. And it's a 50-50 match, so it's a good thing for us. So I don't know, Jim, is there anything else?
You know, it's just another grant funding deal where we match that deal. We put up $500,000, they'll match it with $500,000, and it's one of them grants you put in for when they have the funding. But it goes a long ways in getting projects, getting these distribution lines fixed. And it's just another, we need to have that out there to do. And like I said, we are in a position in some of that we can move forward in some. We have our phase one project that's starting to do that, and that we want to be able to apply for that money with that grant. And we have worked very hard to make our water and sewer funding our reserves where we can make them kind of moves, and we need this passed so that we can apply for it. To our grant writers will apply, and we can make the matching grant and double our money.
May I have a motion?
Yeah, so I move to approve resolution 3603, a resolution of the city of Red Lodge to authorize submission of the Montana Coal Endowment application.
Second. Any further discussion at the table? Roll call.
Battles?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Sturman?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Whistler?
Yes. Thank you. Terry, would you like to introduce resolution 3604?
Wastewater is my thing here. Okay, this resolution acknowledges that the city has completed an assessment to identify potential environmental impacts of the wastewater system's improvement project and determined it that will not significantly affect the quality of the environment, so an environmental impact statement is not necessary. Anything to add, Jim?
No, that's basically the impact statement has to be done. Our engineers have studied that, and all of our lines, everything are within the city boundary, will not impact any possible contamination or anything like that. It's just, they produce that statement, we're just agreeing that we accept it And that moves us forward more to, so we can start moving forward and getting projects.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Sure. So I move to approve Resolution 3604, a resolution of the City of Red Lodge to accept the determination that an environmental assessment is appropriate for the City of Red Lodge's wastewater system improvement project.
Second. Any discussion at the table? Roll call?
Adam?
Yes.
Curtelli?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Keaton?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Whistler?
Yes.
All right, if there are any working council items, which would be, reports from department representatives, then I think we'll, cover that next time, if there was anything huge going on. And unless, is there anything that you find it prudent to mention now, or,
The budget meeting is on the 23rd here from 6 to 7 p.m. Please come.
And we'll be going over general fund.
We'll be going over general fund and resort tax.
May 23rd.
May 23rd, 6 to 7. And again, the budget is available online.
Those two.
Those two. And if you have questions, please look at them and you can send the questions to me ahead of time.
thank you.
And we'll work on that.
That's a good reminder. Are there any other things anybody else would like to announce? The correspondence that we've received is all in the packet, unless it was received too late to make it into the packet, in which case it'll make it into the next packet.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, participants. Thank you all. And,